I am the person everyone called responsible. The one who had it all together. The one who quietly covered the gaps, held the pieces, and never asked for anything back. I'm Riley Whitaker. I'm 28. And the day I realized my family didn't love me, they used me, was the day I couldn't walk anymore. It started with headlights, a red light, a pickup truck that never stopped. They told me later I was unconscious for almost 3 days. I remember nothing, just a flicker of sirens, the cold slap of an oxygen mask, and the feeling of falling. Then came the hospital ceiling, white, blinding. Still, my legs were strapped in metal. My lungs were sore. I could barely move. But none of that hurt as much as the voicemail. "Hi, sweetheart. It's Mom. Your dad and I are already at the airport. We're boarding for Florence with Connor. The doctor said you'll be in the hospital for a while, so there's not much else we can do. Don't call while we're in Europe. The roaming fees are expensive. Get well soon. Oh, and thanks for the credit card. I used it to book the tickets." Xiao. I stared at the phone, not because I didn't understand, but because I did. My parents were gone. My brother was with them, and I was here, alone, in a hospital bed. 2 days earlier, I was working a late shift. I had just gotten promoted. I was driving home. I was tired. And now I was broken. The nurse said they had come by while I was unconscious, that they didn't leave a note, that they didn't answer the hospital's calls. But they had posted photos. Gelato in Florence, smiles in front of the Duomo, hashtags like Hey Cell Healing and Faye Grateful Journey. Paid for by me. I wasn't angry yet. I wasn't even shocked. What I felt was deeper. A collapse. The quiet, slow collapse of a truth I had avoided for years. They didn't see me as a daughter. I was their safety net, their bank, their backup plan. And now that I couldn't even walk, they left me behind. I wasn't always invisible, but I learned quickly that being seen came with rules. Growing up, our family looked perfect from the outside. My dad was a high school principal, buttoned up, respected, the guy who always had a quote about discipline. My mom ran a boutique flower shop, always smiling, always arranging beauty from chaos. And then there was Connor. Connor was their golden child. 3 years older, tall, handsome, good at basketball and terrible at everything else. He never finished college. He never held a job for longer than a season. But he had charm, and that was enough. I was the quiet one, the planner, the responsible daughter who made straight A's, cooked dinner when Mom was running late, and kept her head down when Connor's mistakes became family emergencies. At 16, I got accepted into a summer coding camp in another state. Full scholarship, I told Mom over breakfast. She smiled, but her eyes were already on her phone. "That's great, sweetheart, but Connor just made varsity. His first scrimmage is this weekend. We'll all go watch, right?" I nodded. Of course we would. My 16th birthday. I wore a dress Mom had promised to take me out in. We were supposed to go to dinner, just the two of us. I waited on the couch for 2 hours before the text came sorry. Connor just got called into a last-minute game. Rain check. That was the moment I stopped expecting things, stopped asking, stopped needing, and I started giving. I took all that quiet and turned it into results. Georgia Tech, full STEM scholarship, graduated early, got hired by a rising fintech startup in Austin, made 6 figures before I turned 25. And with my first real paycheck, I did what I thought a good daughter should do. I started sending money home. The roof needed repairs. I paid it off. Dad lost his school insurance. I covered his premiums. Connor wanted to launch a business. I wired him the startup money. Mom cried, the first time. No one's ever helped me like this. I believed her. But that gratitude faded fast. Before long, the calls weren't check-ins. They were invoices. The flower shop's slow this month. Connor needs a new camera for live streaming. Your dad missed his golf tournament. And I kept giving, because I thought if I gave enough, If I was reliable enough, they would love me the way they loved him. Instead, they upgraded their living room to a home theater with my money, while I used a second-hand laptop. They bought a pearl-white SUV and called it a reward for years of hard work. But it wasn't their money. It was mine. I lived in a 700-square-foot apartment, ate canned soup, and skipped vacations. I declined every co-worker invite, afraid to touch my personal card. I tracked everything: color-coded spreadsheets, house bills, car payments, pet food for the purebred Pomeranian they just had to rescue. 1 month, I sent 9,400, and all I got back was silence, or worse, expectation. I thought about Skylar once, my best friend from college. She came over, looked at my spreadsheet, and asked, "If you got seriously hurt tomorrow, what do you think they'd do?" I laughed. "They'd worry." I mean, I'm still their daughter, right? She didn't answer, just closed the laptop gently, like she couldn't bear to look anymore. Now, lying in that hospital bed, I finally knew the answer. They wouldn't worry. They wouldn't check in, they'd just keep spending. And they did. Pain comes in waves. First, it's physical. The fire in your spine, the dull ache behind your eyes, the pressure in your lungs that makes breathing feel like betrayal. But emotional pain, that one settles. It waits until you're alone, until the machines stop beeping, until the visitors never come. It was the 5th day in the hospital when I sat up for the first time. I was dizzy, weak, but clear. Clear enough to check my phone. Clear enough to see what they did. I opened the banking app, something I hadn't done in months. I'd set up auto payments long ago, assuming trust would be honored. Then it hit me. One transaction after another like punches to the chest. June 11th, 2 days after my accident. Bino 15th, 292 at Belia Travel Services. 3 business class upgrade. June 13th, 920 Vespa rental in Florence. June 14th, 1,080 rooftop restaurant booking. June 15th to 7:50 at Sandro Milano. Designer clothing. While I lay half conscious in a trauma ward, I scrolled through Facebook. It didn't take long. A photo of my mother, my father, and Connor, smiling with gelato in hand, the Duomo behind them, sun-kissed and glowing. Caption, well, deserved vacation after years of sacrifice. Grazie. Florence. And in the comments, Connor had posted, "Thanks to the Bank of Riley for funding our soul healing journey." I dropped the phone, then picked it back up. I kept scrolling because I had to know how deep the betrayal went. A family group chat post from 3 weeks earlier. "Lawrence, here we come. As long as Riley doesn't cut off this month's allowance, we're covered. A farewell summer gift." They knew. They'd planned this. Before the accident. Before I tried to set a boundary. Before I said, "I need to save for myself." They weren't heartbroken. They weren't hurt. They were just afraid I'd ruin their plans. I stared at the screen, bile rising in my throat. Then came the photo that broke me. My mom trying on Gucci sunglasses, caption, "Italian summer shades, worth every penny of my daughter's." Rage isn't loud. Not at first, it's quiet. Focused. Like a scalpel. Like clarity. Riley, the nurse who always brought me chamomile, walked in just then. She saw my face, pale and frozen, and didn't speak. I held up the phone. She sat beside me and whispered, "They used your money." I nodded. While I was bleeding out, they were ordering wine on a rooftop. Tears came, not from pain, from the brutal end of a belief system I had built my life around. That love meant giving. That family meant loyalty. That someday I'd be enough to be loved back. But love built on expectation isn't love. And loyalty without respect is just a contract you never agreed to. I closed the app. And in that sterile, fluorescent hospital room, I made a decision. They didn't get to decide who I was anymore. I was no longer their sponsor. I was no longer their excuse. I was done. I always thought freedom would feel like fireworks. But when you have been trapped long enough, Freedom feels like a quiet breath you didn't know you had been holding. It started at 4 in the morning. The hospital room was dark, except for the glow of the nightlight above my bed. My left leg pulsed with pain, but I didn't press the morphine button. I needed to feel everything. I opened my laptop. I typed slowly, and I called Alva. She was a financial advisor my nurse had recommended. Calm voice. Sharp mind, no small talk. The first thing she said was this: "Let's take back what's yours." Within hours, I had closed every account I used to send money home, every auto payment, every linked device. We opened 3 new accounts, set up 2-factor authentication, new passwords, new digital wallets. Everything was rerouted. Next came the credit cards. I called the hotline and listed every charge made since the accident. I reported the travel bookings, the designer shopping, the wine-soaked meals. The bank launched a fraud investigation. I asked, "Will they be held accountable?" The voice on the other end said, "They will be asked to explain. And with this evidence, they may be reported to civil authorities." I hung up and kept going. I called the power company, the water utility, the internet provider, every service I had been paying for in their house. One by one, I shut them all off. I called the dealership, asked about the SUV my parents drove, and the car Connor used. Both were financed in my name. I said, "Arrange a repossession." The woman on the line asked, "Are you sure?" I said, "I am. I'm not their sponsor anymore." Every call was a cut. Every cancellation was a stitch I had been waiting years to sew. By noon, I was sitting upright in bed, exhausted but alert. Riley walked in with peppermint tea. She paused when she saw the screen. "Planning a coup?" She joked. "No," I said. "I am reclaiming my life." I wasn't finished. I opened my old email, found the airline confirmation number from the trip, 3 return tickets, Florence to Dallas, business class. I canceled them. The refund hit my new account, and I left a note on the file. Transaction made without account holder consent. The rep asked, "You're leaving them stranded?" I said no. I'm giving them the chance to pay their own way for the first time in their lives. That afternoon, Riley's brother drove us to my parents' house. I had a list of items that were mine: personal documents, heirlooms, memories, pieces of me. The house was unlocked, security cameras off. I stepped in like a stranger. We took only what was legally mine. No shouting, no notes, no revenge, except one thing. I left a post-it on the fridge. It said, "I am no longer your sponsor. Please find another way to live." That night my phone rang. It was them. I didn't answer, and I didn't cry, because for the first time in my life, I wasn't afraid of what would happen if I said no. I had already said it, and I meant it. 3 days passed. I expected silence. I was wrong. First came the calls. "Mom? Dad? Connor?" Over and over, I didn't pick up. Then came the messages. "You think this is funny? We're stranded." Cards declined. "You cut us off for real. You'll regret this. How could you do this to your own mother? We'll sue. Just wait." And finally, the one I had memorized before I even read it. "After all we've done for you." I didn't respond. I moved every message into a folder marked closed. I knew what was next. They wouldn't just disappear. People like them don't let go. They come knocking. And they did. 3 days later, the hospital front desk called my room. "There are 3 people here, no appointment, asking for Riley Woodacre." I looked at Riley, my nurse, the one who stayed through everything. She put down her book. "Want me to stay?" I nodded. They entered without knocking. Mom came first, face tight. Dad followed, jaw clenched. Connor trailed behind, arms crossed, sunburned and silent. They looked around like they were in the wrong room. And maybe they were. Because I wasn't the girl they remembered. I wasn't silent. I wasn't scared. Mom spoke first. "Do you even realize what you've done?" Her voice was sharp. Not broken. It wasn't sadness. It was anger. Embarrassment. "You humiliated us in front of friends. You left us with nothing. You stole from your own family. I stared at her. Calm. No, I just took back what was mine. Dad stepped forward. You acted like a stranger. No warning, no explanation. How is this not just abandonment? It's not abandonment, I said. It's boundaries. You still have a home, just not one I pay for anymore. Connor finally spoke. You ruined everything. You think I don't see what this is. You don't want a family. You want to live in your little castle and pretend we never existed. You're 25, Connor. You don't work. You don't study. You don't pay for anything. And now you want me to apologize for not handing you a car. I don't owe you a sandwich, let alone a sedan. Mom sat down hard in the chair beside my bed. Her eyes welled with tears. You don't understand, Riley. I skipped meals to feed you. Your father drove hours every week to bring you home from college. And now, you want to liquidate your duty as a daughter. Dad pulled something from his jacket. A torn printout. The cancellation email from the airline. He held it like a weapon. You crossed a line, I nodded. Yes, I did. And I'll do it again. I reached to my bedside table. Handed them an envelope. Inside were 3 pages. Type signed. Dad flipped through them, eyes narrowing. What is this? These are the conditions if you want to remain in my life. No financial support. Contact only with prior agreement. If boundaries are crossed, contact ends permanently. Is this a contract? It's a line. One you don't get to step over anymore. Mom crumpled the envelope in her hand. I won't sign this. I won't play by your rules. You're no daughter of mine. Connor tossed a key onto the table. Take your car. Take your money. Go live with your nurse. They turned and left. The door slammed so hard the vase on the table rattled. I didn't flinch. Riley sat back down beside me. You okay? I exhaled. Slowly, deeply. Yes. Because they don't control anything anymore. For the first time in my life, I do. 3 weeks later, I left the hospital. No balloons. No family photos. Just Riley's brother waiting outside with a pickup truck, and soft music playing through half-working speakers. In the truck bed was everything I owned. A few boxes, a folded blanket, and a small handmade sign Riley had taped to the dashboard. Riley's new journey. I smiled, not because it was over, but because something new had finally begun. I didn't go back to my apartment. I moved into Eleanor's spare bedroom. Eleanor, the woman I once shared a hospital room with. The one who counted my steps. The one who called every shaky moment a victory. Her apartment was small, warm. She insisted on charging me $1 a month in rent. Not because she needed it, but because she said dignity still mattered. Each morning, Riley drove me to physical therapy. Each evening, I sat by the window and read, legs propped on pillows. Heart slowly learning how to beat without guilt. One afternoon, Riley brought ginger tea and asked me a question. If you could go back, would you change any of it? I thought about it. Really thought. I shook my head. No. Because if none of it happened, I wouldn't know what love isn't. And I wouldn't know what home really means. She nodded. Then welcome home. I still have bad days. Days where I wonder if I was too harsh, too cold, too final. But then I remember the voicemail, the credit card receipts, the rooftop photos, the silence when I needed them most. And I remind myself this isn't revenge. It's release. I haven't spoken to them since that hospital confrontation. Not once. The messages stopped. The guilt's faded, or maybe I stopped hearing it. I got a new job, part-time, for now, remote work, low pressure. But mine. I finally bought groceries without checking someone else's account first. I walked through a bookstore and bought a novel just because the cover felt like comfort. And one night, Riley brought a cake, a small one. No candles, no singing. She just said, you deserve to celebrate something that's yours. I didn't cry. But I did take the first bite with hands that no longer trembled. Because I am no longer the girl behind the spreadsheet. No longer the daughter on demand. No longer the emergency fund. I am Riley, and I belong to myself now. I wrote them a letter. Not because I want them back, not because I need to be understood, but because there are words that have lived too long inside my chest, and I needed to let them breathe. If only once. I'll never send it. But I wrote it anyway. It begins like this, Mom. Dad, Connor. I used to think family was about endurance, holding on, forgiving everything, bending until you snapped, and calling it love. But I don't believe that anymore. Because love doesn't make you disappear. It doesn't take your silence as permission. It doesn't call your boundaries betrayal. You didn't break me all at once. You chipped away, small things. A missed birthday, a withheld hug, a request wrapped in guilt. A pattern of choosing him over me. Again and again and again. I made excuses. I called it parenting. I called it cultural. I called it survival. But what it was neglect with a smile. You taught me how to give, how to show up, how to sacrifice. But you never taught me how to receive. And when I finally asked to keep just a little for myself, you called it selfish. You used my money to board a plane, while I lay broken in a hospital bed. You ate pasta under Tuscan skies, while I couldn't walk 10 feet without a nurse. You didn't check in. You didn't say you loved me. You left a voicemail. I don't need an apology anymore. I don't need understanding, or healing, or repair. I just needed truth. And now I have it, so here's my truth. I forgive you. But I'm not coming back. I wish you peace. I hope you find happiness. I hope Connor learns how to stand on his own. But I will not be the one holding everyone up anymore. I am building a life, and this time it will not be built on guilt. Goodbye. Riley, I fold the letter. Place it in a box beside my bed. No stamp, no address, just words. Set free. That night I sleep without checking my phone. And in the morning, I smile before I open my eyes. Because today I belong to no one but myself. If you've ever been the quiet one, the one who gives without question, who holds the family together in silence, who sacrifices comfort, joy, even identity, just to keep the peace, then maybe you know what Riley felt. Not anger, not revenge, but a deep, aching realization that sometimes love is one-sided. But hear this, you are allowed to say no. You are allowed to draw the line. You are allowed to choose yourself, even if it means walking away. Because protecting your peace is not betrayal, it's survival, it's courage. And in many ways, it's love, for the person you're finally learning to be. If Riley's story moved you, if it reminded you of something buried or something still hurting, tell me. What would you have done in her place? Share your thoughts in the comments. Like this video if you believe in setting boundaries. Share it with someone who needs this message. And subscribe to Telling Story with me. Because here, we tell stories that hurt, stories that heal, and stories that say the words you've been afraid to speak out loud. Until next time, take care of your heart. And remember, you don't have to earn love. You just have to stop giving it to the people who never deserved it.